My boss humiliated me every day for a year. HR did nothing despite video evidence. Then I got a call about her husband. I'm still in shock I'm writing this. My boss Melissa has been a living nightmare for 14 months. Daily mockery about my speech impediment, calling me slow in meetings, deliberately excluding me from important client calls. All of it slowly destroying my confidence and mental health. Last week, she mocked me in front of our biggest client, doing an exaggerated impression of my stutter that made everyone uncomfortable. The client actually apologized to me later. That was the final straw. I went to HR with documented incidents, witness statements, even a video recording of her making fun of me when she thought I wasn't around. Their response? We'll look into it, the same thing they'd said 6 times before. Nothing changed. Then yesterday, I got a call that changed everything. It was from a number I didn't recognize. A man's voice asked if I was Michael from Tech Marketing. When I confirmed, he said I'm James, Melissa's husband. I need to talk to you about something important. What he told me next left me speechless. I never could have imagined where this would lead. I guess I should start from the beginning. I joined Tech Marketing 14 months ago, excited about the opportunity. I'd been working at a smaller agency where growth opportunities were limited, and Tech was known for innovation and great benefits. The interview process went smoothly. I met with several team members and the department director, but not with my would-be direct supervisor, Melissa, who was apparently on vacation. My first day started well. The team seemed friendly, the office was modern, and I was eager to prove myself. Then I met Melissa. She was late to our first meeting, barely looked at me while introducing herself, and immediately handed me a project due the next day with almost no guidance. I have a mild stutter that gets worse when I'm nervous. During that first meeting, as I tried to ask questions about the project, my stutter was noticeable. I saw something change in Melissa's expression, a slight smirk, a narrowing of her eyes. She interrupted me mid-sentence, saying, "We don't have time for this. Just figure it out, or maybe this isn't the right role for you." I stayed late that night, determined to nail the project despite the lack of direction. When I presented it the next morning, she barely looked at it before pointing out everything she thought was wrong. Nothing about what worked well, just criticism, delivered in front of the entire team. That set the pattern. Melissa would assign me tasks without proper guidance, then publicly criticize my work. She'd imitate my stutter when repeating my ideas in meetings, making them sound ridiculous. She'd talk over me, cut me off, or simply ignore my input altogether. At first, I thought maybe I wasn't meeting expectations or that my work truly needed improvement. I asked for specific feedback on how to do better, but she'd just say vague things like, "You should know this already or figure it out." After a few months, it became clear this wasn't about my performance. Other team members would quietly tell me my work was good, or they'd come to me for ideas because they valued my input, just not when Melissa was around. A few colleagues noticed how she treated me and seemed uncomfortable, but nobody wanted to challenge her. The worst incidents stand out vividly in my memory. During a team presentation I'd worked on for weeks, she cut me off mid-explanation and said, "Let me translate what Michael is trying to say," then proceeded to simplify my points as if explaining to a child. In another meeting, she openly asked if I needed extra time to understand basic concepts. Once, she even suggested in front of a client that they should email their questions instead of calling me because Michael has trouble with verbal communication. Each time, I felt more diminished, more humiliated. My stutter, which I'd managed well for years, became worse. I started dreading meetings, avoiding speaking up, and second-guessing every decision. 6 months in, I first went to HR. I had documented every incident I could remember, with dates and witnesses when possible. The HR representative, Lisa, seemed concerned and promised to look into it. 2 weeks later, she told me they had spoken with Melissa and the issue should improve. It didn't. I went back to HR again. And again. Each time, Lisa seemed increasingly uncomfortable with my visits. These personality conflicts happen in every workplace, she told me during my 3rd visit. By the 6th time, she barely hid her annoyance, suggesting I might need to develop a thicker skin or consider if this company culture is right for you. Meanwhile, I started noticing something strange. Despite Melissa's treatment of me, she was extremely popular with upper management. She was always invited to executive lunches, received praise in company-wide emails, and seemed untouchable. I later learned her brother-in-law was the COO, which explained a lot. What kept me going was the work itself and some of my colleagues. I genuinely enjoyed marketing, was good at it, and a few team members quietly supported me. Travis, our senior copywriter, would often back up my ideas in meetings or redirect questions to me that Melissa tried to answer herself. Anna from the design team would send me encouraging messages after particularly rough meetings. The breaking point came last week. We were presenting campaign concepts to our biggest client, a national retail chain. I was explaining the social media strategy I'd developed when I hit a difficult word and stuttered. Before I could recover, Melissa jumped in with an exaggerated imitation of my stutter, saying, what Michael is trying to say is. The room went silent. Even the clients looked uncomfortable. After the meeting, one of the client representatives, Raphael, approached me privately. That was unprofessional how she treated you, he said. Your strategy was solid. If you ever want to discuss it directly, here's my card. His kindness nearly broke me. Someone outside the company had seen in minutes what HR had ignored for a year. That afternoon, I recorded a video of Melissa mocking me to another manager when they thought I'd left for the day. I took this, along with Raphael's business card and all my previous documentation, to HR once more. Lisa seemed annoyed until I mentioned the client had noticed. Suddenly concerned, she promised immediate action. A week passed. Nothing changed. If anything, Melissa became worse, as if she knew I'd complained again and was punishing me for it. Then yesterday, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a man introduced himself as James, Melissa's husband. My heart sank. Was I about to get threatened for complaining about his wife? I found your number in Melissa's contacts, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. I need to talk to you about how she treats people at work. Specifically, about how she treats you. I was speechless. How did he know? What could he possibly want to discuss? I've heard her talk about you, he continued. The things she says. They're cruel. And I've stayed silent too long. I recently found her journal where she explicitly writes about sabotaging your career because she feels threatened by you. There's more, and I think you deserve to know. Can we meet? We arranged to meet at a coffee shop far from the office that evening. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, wondering what James could possibly tell me that would matter now. By the time I arrived at the coffee shop, my hands were shaking. James was already there, a tall man with kind eyes and a tired expression. He didn't look anything like what I'd imagined based on Melissa's occasional mentions of her successful executive husband. He seemed defeated. Thank you for meeting me, he said as I sat down. This isn't easy, but I need to do the right thing. James then told me a story that changed everything I thought I knew about Melissa and my situation. Melissa has a pattern, he explained. At every company she's worked for, she identifies someone she perceives as a threat, usually someone talented but with some vulnerability she can exploit. Then she systematically undermines them until they quit or get fired. He pulled out his phone and showed me screenshots of journal entries Melissa had written about me. They were disturbing. She called me the stuttering genius who needs to be put in his place. She wrote about deliberately giving me contradictory instructions, taking credit for my ideas, and her plan to have me removed from key accounts. Why are you showing me this? I asked, my voice shaking. James looked down at his coffee. Because you're the fourth person I know about. The last one, David from her previous company, attempted suicide after she destroyed his reputation there. I found out too late to help him. I can't have that on my conscience again. He explained that he'd recently discovered Melissa had been diagnosed with a personality disorder years ago but had stopped treatment, believing nothing was wrong with her. Her behavior had destroyed their marriage, and he was filing for divorce after trying to get her help for years. I've already contacted a lawyer, he said. I'm prepared to provide a statement about what I know, including these journal entries. It won't undo what you've experienced, but maybe it will help stop this from happening to someone else. I left that meeting in shock, clutching a folder of screenshots James had printed for me. Part of me felt vindicated. I wasn't imagining things, I wasn't too sensitive. Another part felt sick about what Melissa had put others through before me. This morning, I requested an urgent meeting with HR and the department director. I brought everything, my original documentation, the video, James's screenshots, and his signed statement offering to testify if needed. Lisa from HR looked physically ill as she reviewed the materials. The department director, who had always seemed to adore Melissa, kept shaking his head in disbelief. We need to discuss this with legal, he finally said. In the meantime, Michael, please take paid leave for the rest of the week. We'll be in touch very soon. I'm home now, writing this all out, still processing what happened. For the first time in 14 months, I feel like I can breathe. I don't know what will happen with Melissa or my job, but at least the truth is out. Update, 3 days later. I received a call from the department director and the head of HR, not Lisa, this morning. They asked me to come in for a meeting, assuring me it would be just the three of us. I was nervous but decided to go. When I arrived, they were both extremely apologetic. The head of HR, Sharon, started by acknowledging that the company had failed me. "We've reviewed everything you provided, plus additional complaints that have surfaced since then. The evidence is overwhelming, and we've taken immediate action. Melissa has been terminated. Not asked to resign or given the option to transition out, straight up fired for violation of multiple company policies. They explained they'd discovered she had a history of similar behavior at previous employers that she'd managed to keep off her references." Sharon also told me that Lisa from HR has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into why she repeatedly failed to address my complaints. Apparently, Lisa and Melissa were much closer than anyone realized. They've been friends since college, which Lisa never disclosed as a conflict of interest. The department director offered me a promotion and a significant raise, saying my work had always been excellent and that several clients had specifically requested to continue working with me. He seemed genuinely remorseful about not noticing what was happening right under his nose. I was overwhelmed but managed to ask, "What about the connection to the COO? I thought Melissa was protected because of her brother-in-law." They looked confused. After some clarification, I learned that Melissa had fabricated that relationship entirely. She'd mentioned the COO was her brother-in-law so often that everyone just accepted it as fact, but they weren't related at all. I accepted the promotion but said I needed time to think about whether I want to stay with the company long-term. They completely understood and offered me an additional 2 weeks of paid leave to consider my options. After leaving that meeting, I texted James to let him know what happened and to thank him again for coming forward. He responded that he was glad justice was served and mentioned that several other former employees of Melissa's previous companies had contacted him after he reached out to them. They're considering some kind of group action about the pattern of harassment. I'm still processing everything, but for the first time in over a year, I feel like I might be okay. Several colleagues have reached out with supportive messages, including Travis and Anna, who both apologized for not doing more to help me. I don't blame them. Melissa had created a culture of fear where speaking up seemed dangerous. I also received a LinkedIn message from Raphael, the client who had given me his card, congratulating me on the promotion he'd somehow already heard about and reiterating his interest in working directly with me on future projects. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with a therapist who specializes in workplace trauma. I know it will take time to rebuild my confidence and manage the anxiety this experience has caused, but I'm ready to start that process. Thank you all for your support and advice. It means more than you know. Update, 2 weeks later. These past 2 weeks have been transformative. After much reflection and several sessions with my therapist, I've decided to stay at AccuTech, with conditions. I met with the executive team yesterday and presented my terms: a formal mentorship program for new employees, mandatory harassment training for all managers, and a restructured HR reporting system where complaints can be filed to multiple people to prevent another Lisa situation. To my surprise, they not only agreed but asked me to help develop these programs. The office feels completely different now. Without Melissa's toxic presence, people seem more relaxed, more collaborative. Several colleagues have shared their own experiences with her. Nothing as severe as what I endured, but it's clear she spread negativity throughout the department. Travis told me Melissa had threatened to block his promotion if he continued supporting me in meetings. Anna revealed Melissa had deliberately misrepresented my work to her, creating unnecessary friction between our teams. I've started speech therapy again, something I'd abandoned during the worst of Melissa's bullying because her mockery made my stutter worse. My therapist believes that with time and the right environment, my confidence in speaking will improve significantly. The most unexpected development came from James. He reached out to tell me that through his lawyer, he discovered Melissa had been secretly recording workplace conversations on her phone, including many instances of her bullying me and others. Though the recordings were likely illegal in our state, which requires two-party consent, they provide even more evidence of her behavior. He's turned these over to his divorce attorney but offered copies to me if they would help ensure workplace safety for others. I've also connected with David, the employee from Melissa's previous company who had attempted suicide. He's doing better now and was incredibly grateful to learn that Melissa had finally faced consequences. He told me that after his experience, several colleagues had reported her behavior, but without evidence as compelling as what I had, the company had simply moved her to another department. Raphael's company has increased their business with us, specifically requesting me as their account lead. During our first meeting without Melissa, Raphael told me they had actually been considering leaving AccuTech because of her unprofessionalism but stayed because of my work. That validation means more than any promotion could. Lisa from HR has been fired after the investigation revealed she had actively suppressed not just my complaints but those from other employees about various issues. The company has hired an external HR consultant to rebuild the entire department with proper accountability measures. Several of you asked about legal action against Accutech. I consulted with an employment attorney who advised that while I likely have a strong case, the company's swift corrective action once presented with irrefutable evidence would mitigate some of their liability. More importantly, the changes they're implementing seem genuine, not just damage control. I've decided to focus on healing and helping reform the company culture rather than pursuing litigation, though I'm keeping the option open. The most meaningful change has been within myself. My stutter is still there, but I'm no longer ashamed of it. In fact, I gave a presentation to the entire marketing department yesterday and, when I stuttered on a few words, simply took a breath and continued without apology. No one mimicked me, no one looked uncomfortable, a few people even nodded encouragingly. It was just accepted as part of who I am, not defining my value or capabilities. I know this journey isn't over. There will be difficult days ahead, triggers and moments of doubt. But for now, I'm allowing myself to feel something I haven't felt in a very long time: hope. Update, 3 months later. It's been 3 months since Melissa was fired, and I hardly recognize my work life anymore. The mentorship program I helped establish has already onboarded 15 new employees across departments, giving them resources and support I never had. During training sessions, I've shared my experience, with company approval, as a case study in how harassment can escalate when left unchecked. It's been therapeutic to transform my pain into something constructive. The new HR structure has already proven effective. When a situation arose in the sales department involving a manager making inappropriate comments, it was addressed within days rather than months. The manager received formal discipline and mandatory training, and the employees affected were provided with support resources immediately. This kind of swift action would have been unimaginable during Lisa's tenure. My promotion has come with challenges, but the good kind, the ones that push you to grow rather than the kind that crush your spirit. I'm leading a team of 4 now, and I've made it my mission to create the supportive environment I wished I'd had. We celebrate wins together, learn from mistakes without shame, and communicate openly about challenges. My speech therapy is going well. My stutter hasn't disappeared, but my anxiety around it has decreased dramatically. I no longer avoid words I might stumble on or shy away from speaking opportunities. In fact, I volunteered to present at an industry conference next month, something I would have considered impossible before. The most surprising development involves James, Melissa's ex-husband. Their divorce was finalized last month. He's become something of a whistleblower, working with human resources professionals to develop better systems for identifying and addressing workplace bullying. He reached out to me last week to ask if I'd be willing to participate in a panel discussion about workplace harassment from the target's perspective. I agreed immediately. As for Melissa, I've heard through industry connections that she's having difficulty finding new employment. The circumstances of her termination have become something of an open secret in our field. While I don't wish her ill, there's a certain justice in knowing she can't easily move on to torment someone else. According to James, she's finally seeking treatment for her personality disorder, though he's skeptical about her commitment to change. Several of you have asked about my relationship with my colleagues now. It's complicated. Some, like Travis and Anna, have become genuine friends. We've had honest conversations about why they didn't do more to help, and I understand the fear and uncertainty they felt. Others still seem awkward around me, perhaps embarrassed by their silence or worried I harbor resentment. I'm trying to be patient and rebuild these relationships gradually. The client Raphael has become a valued professional connection. His company's account has grown by 30% under my management, and he's referred 2 new clients to us specifically asking for me to lead their projects. This external validation has helped rebuild my professional confidence in ways internal promotion alone couldn't. My therapist says I'm making excellent progress but cautions that trauma doesn't resolve in a neat linear fashion. Some days are still harder than others. I still flinch sometimes when someone interrupts me in meetings. I still occasionally hear Melissa's mocking voice in my head when I stutter. But these moments are becoming less frequent and less powerful. When I look back at where I was 4 months ago, depressed, anxious, questioning my worth as a professional and as a person, the contrast is stunning. I've received dozens of messages from people who read my previous updates, sharing similar experiences and asking for advice. Responding to these has become another part of my healing process, transforming isolation into connection. I want to thank everyone who offered support and advice throughout this journey. Your validation helped me trust my own perceptions when I was at my lowest. I hope my story might help others recognize toxic behavior early or find the courage to stand up against it. No one should have to endure what I did, and if speaking out helps even one person, then something meaningful has come from this painful chapter. Update, 1 year later. It's been exactly 1 year since Melissa was fired, and I'm writing this update from my new office, with a door, a window, and my name on a plaque outside. 6 months ago, I was promoted to marketing director after my predecessor retired. The department has never been more productive or harmonious. The mentorship program has expanded company-wide and become a selling point for recruitment. Our turnover rate has dropped by 40%, and exit interviews consistently mention the positive culture as a reason people stay longer than planned. The HR restructuring has become a case study at a local business school, with our new HR director occasionally guest lecturing on organizational transformation. As for me personally, the most significant change has been in my relationship with my speech impediment. I no longer view it as something to overcome or hide. At a recent leadership retreat, I led a session on authentic communication, directly addressing how my stutter has shaped my approach to clear messaging. Several colleagues later told me it was the most impactful presentation they'd experienced. The panel discussion with James evolved into a recurring workshop series on recognizing and addressing workplace bullying. We've presented at 3 industry conferences, and a publisher has approached us about co-authoring a book based on our experiences and expertise. James has found purpose in this work, transforming his regret about enabling Melissa into action that helps others. Speaking of Melissa, I received an unexpected email from her 6 months ago. It was brief but appeared sincere, an acknowledgement of her behavior and its impact, with no excuses or requests for forgiveness. According to Mutual Connections, she completed an intensive therapy program and now works at a small firm in another state. She included in her email that she's continuing treatment and has chosen a role with minimal supervisory responsibilities. I didn't respond, but the email provided a certain closure I hadn't realized I needed. Lisa from HR attempted to sue the company for wrongful termination but dropped the case when confronted with evidence of her deliberate suppression of multiple harassment complaints. She's apparently left the HR field altogether, which I consider a positive outcome for potential future employees she might have failed. My therapy sessions have decreased to monthly check-ins. My therapist notes that while the experience will always be part of my story, it no longer defines or controls me. I've developed healthier boundaries, clearer communication, and a deeper understanding of my own worth, skills that benefit every aspect of my life. Raphael's company is now our biggest client, and he and I have developed a friendship outside of work. He recently confided that his own son has a speech impediment, and seeing how I navigated professional settings helped him worry less about his child's future. These unexpected ripple effects continue to amaze me. Travis has become my deputy director, bringing his creative talent and newly discovered leadership abilities to the role. Anna now leads our design team and has implemented collaborative processes that have significantly improved our creative output. The team members who once stood silently by while Melissa tormented me have become vocal advocates for respectful communication. We've hired several employees with visible and invisible disabilities in the past year, creating an environment where differences are seen as assets rather than liabilities. Our marketing materials now feature more diverse representation, not as a token effort but as a reflection of our evolving understanding of inclusive communication. The most profound change has been internal. I no longer carry the constant anxiety, the dread of humiliation, the second guessing of my own perceptions. I speak in meetings without rehearsing every word in my head first. I challenge ideas without fearing retribution. I mentor junior staff without worrying I'll somehow damage them as I was damaged. Last month, a new employee came to me privately after witnessing something that made them uncomfortable in another department. They said they felt safe reporting it because of how the company handled your situation. I was momentarily confused until they explained that my experience has become something of a company legend, not as a scandal, but as evidence that the organization can learn, change, and do right by its people. To those still in situations similar to mine, please know that what's happening to you isn't your fault, and you deserve better. Document everything, find allies where you can, and remember that your abuser's behavior reflects their failings, not yours. Whether your resolution comes through HR, legal channels, or finding a healthier workplace, don't lose hope that things can get better. And to those who supported me through this journey, thank you. Your validation, advice, and encouragement helped me find the strength to stand up for myself when I was at my lowest. I hope updating you on the positive outcomes has, in some small way, repaid that kindness. I don't plan to post further updates unless something significant changes. My story has evolved from one of victimization to one of recovery and growth. While I'll never forget what happened, I'm no longer defined by it. And perhaps that's the most meaningful victory of all. Final update, 2 years later. I hadn't planned to write another update, but something happened recently that feels like the true conclusion to this chapter of my life. Tech was acquired by a larger marketing firm 6 months ago. The transition has been mostly positive, more resources, bigger clients, new opportunities. But with any acquisition comes uncertainty and change. As part of the restructuring, all directors were required to reapply for their positions. Despite our department's exceptional performance metrics, I worried my speech impediment might count against me with new executives who didn't know my work. Old insecurities resurfaced as I prepared for the interview. The night before my interview, I received a LinkedIn message from David, the employee from Melissa's previous company who had attempted suicide. We'd kept in loose contact since connecting during the aftermath of Melissa's firing. His message was brief but exactly what I needed: they'd be fools to lose you. Your communication style isn't a liability, it's proof of your resilience. Go show them who you are. The interview panel included the acquiring company's CMO, their HR director, and a board member. I decided to address my stutter directly in my opening remarks, explaining how it had shaped my communication philosophy, emphasizing clarity, active listening, and thoughtful responses over rapid-fire reactions. The CMO nodded appreciatively and said, "That's exactly the approach we're trying to build in our culture. Your predecessor here was brilliant but created a high-pressure environment where people were afraid to take time to think." To my surprise, the interview shifted from defending my position to discussing how I might help reshape communication patterns across both organizations. They were particularly interested in the mentorship program and inclusive leadership approach I'd implemented. 2 weeks later, I wasn't just retained, I was promoted to senior director with responsibility for integrating the marketing departments of both companies. The announcement email specifically mentioned my thoughtful communication style and demonstrated ability to build psychologically safe teams as key factors in the decision. At the celebration dinner, the CMO pulled me aside and shared something I never expected. "I researched you before the acquisition was finalized," she admitted. "Your handling of the situation with your former boss 2 years ago was one of the reasons we were interested in AccuTech. We wanted leaders who had proven they could address toxic behavior directly and transform culture." All those months of documentation, the painful meetings with unresponsive HR, the humiliation and self-doubt, they hadn't just saved my career. They had, in some small way, contributed to the company's value and future direction. The final piece of closure came last week at our industry's annual conference. I was presenting on ethical marketing practices when I noticed a familiar face in the audience, Melissa. My heart raced momentarily, but I continued without faltering. After the presentation, attendees gathered for networking. I was speaking with a group when I felt a presence beside me. It was Melissa, looking both professional and somehow diminished. "That was an excellent presentation," she said quietly. "You've clearly found your voice." I thanked her, maintaining professional courtesy while feeling a surreal sense of distance from the fear she once inspired. She hesitated, then added, "I'm still working on myself. Your career success has been motivating in ways I couldn't have predicted." We spoke briefly about industry trends, neither of us acknowledging our history directly. As she walked away, I realized I felt nothing but a mild curiosity about her journey. The power she once held over me was completely gone. Later that evening, I received a text from James, who had also attended the conference but in a different track. "Saw Melissa spoke to you. You okay?" I responded that I was fine, better than fine. He suggested a coffee meetup the next morning to catch up. Over coffee, James shared that he's engaged to someone new, a kind, supportive woman who works in education. Our workshop series on workplace bullying has become a regular program at 3 universities' business schools. The book we co-authored is being released next month. What began as the worst experience of my professional life has transformed into something meaningful that helps others. Back at work after the conference, I assembled my newly integrated team for our first official meeting. Looking around the room at these professionals from both companies, I felt a deep sense of responsibility and opportunity. I started by sharing my vision for our department, one where communication is clear but kind, where differences are leveraged as strengths, where psychological safety is the foundation for innovation. As I spoke, I stuttered occasionally. No one flinched or looked away. A new team member even built on a point I'd struggled to articulate, demonstrating active listening rather than impatience. This simple moment of inclusion, once unimaginable, now felt natural and expected. 3 years ago, I was brought to the brink of professional despair by one person's targeted cruelty. Today, I lead a department where differences are respected, where communication is valued over performance, and where each person's unique perspective enriches our work. If you're currently where I was then, doubting yourself, questioning your perceptions, enduring daily humiliation, please know that this chapter does end. The journey through it is neither easy nor quick, but there is solid ground on the other side. Document everything, seek allies, maintain your integrity, and hold on to the truth of your own worth. That's what sustained me during the darkest times, and it's what I wish for anyone still finding their way through the darkness. This will be my final update. My story continues, but it's no longer defined by what was done to me. It's defined by what I choose to do with the strength I've found, the lessons I've learned, and the voice I've reclaimed, stutter and all.